least disorderly.
Yep.
At the very least, because it makes no sense. And he said it's not a discon. That's what he called it. He goes, it's not a discon. I go, well, I believe it is. Like, we could have an argument about it, but the fact that he didn't even go over there to say anything to him, like I said, was an issue to me. And
no, I agree. And as the supervisor here, I will address it with him.
Okay, but even not for just the future. I'd like you to look into it a little bit, talk to him, and get, because I could prove that another person was there. I'm just saying, I think it should be a disorderly. That's something that should be given to them, I believe, for that day. It just wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
He comes. I'm working day shifts all this week. He comes back on Wednesday, day shift. I'll be working with him. I'll have a discussion with him. We'll talk it over.
Okay.
Make sure that it's all reflected in the narrative of this, and we'll go from there. If you want to call back and speak with me, you obviously know the number.
Yep.
Do you have the number to Morrisville?
No, I called the state police number. What is it? What number should I be calling?
Sometimes we're here. If we're not here, did you call the 366-6000 number?
I think so.
That's a good number. They'll always be able to reach us. That's our dispatch center, pretty much.
Okay.
But our number right here at Morrisville is let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I got a pen.
It's 684 9550.
Okay.
If we're here, we'll pick it up. I mean, it is a smaller station, so if we're not here, you can call the 366-6000 number again.
Okay.
But I'll discuss this with Dienhofer. I'll discuss it with Noonan. That from this point forward, and any other trooper, when they respond, that they remain unbiased. They talk to both sides, and that they advise you and keep you updated and posted on what is said and what is going to be done. That they don't just simply get in a vehicle and try to drive away. I'll explain that this is being handled civilly. Everything needs to be documented thoroughly and accurately, because you will probably be obtaining this information someday to help you out in court.
And Mr. Fountain, one thing, because this is what I was going to really talk about with Mr. Buzzard, but since we're on the topic, this is another thing that I had, one issue, okay? Do you have time? Do you have a minute?
Yep, go ahead.
So when I first called Officer Perry came here, and he listened to my story, and he told me basically he sees the damage, he understands. He said he's gonna he wants me to give him a deposition, and he's gonna get a deposition from Brian and Christy Lane and from Mr. Kelly, and if he needs to, he would get it from this girl called Savannah Hunter or whatever. Okay?
Yep.
I said okay. I gave him a deposition. And then he said, allow him some time to get the other depositions and do his investigation. I said, okay. Yep. He took 2 weeks. Between that 2 weeks, he stopped here. He did other things. I don't want to, drag it on, but it took him 2 weeks. And then he went to the DA's, and he told me he's going to take it to the DA. He took it to the DA, and he said the DA told him, whatever, it's civil. Okay? I disagreed. I gave him more information, and then Officer Buzzard said, take it to the Sergeant Buzzard said, take it to the DA again, make sure. He took it again. They said the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. After that, you guys never went to the DA. Like, that was it. Okay? A little bit of time passed, and then I had Officer Buzzard come here, because that day when he told me, I said, get your sergeant, and he just left, Officer Perry. I didn't even know he was leaving. But he left, and then the next day, Sergeant Buzzard came with Perry. And I explained to him the situation, and he told Perry, you should have got the deposition from Brian and Christy Lane and Kelly the first time. So he said, we're going to go get the deposition. Here's my problem. You guys went to the DA's office and handed them information, but you never gave them the deposition of Brian Lane and Charles Kelly, which would be important in intent to prove that if this was done on purpose or not. That's a little bit of a problem that I have, because I feel like it wasn't presented properly. Because how could it be presented properly without deposition? That makes a huge difference. That's from a situation going from hearsay to having literal depositions from someone.
I don't see any depositions that they took, but I will say,
Because Officer Perry told me, and I seen him come here, because I live next door. I seen him, this is after the 2 times that you guys said no. Officer Buzzard came out here. I went through the whole situation with him. He explained to me how he understands me. He said the same thing kind of like how you said, where he agrees with me. And he said, you know, I think it's a civil case, and he's been, I think, through something similar, like in his own, you know, in his own life. And I understand all that, but at the end, when we were at the end of the driveway, they said they were going to get a deposition. And they got a deposition, because I seen him come get one from Brian. And when I talked to Perry, he told me, he goes, I got one from Brian, I got one from Charles Kelly, who was the guy that they hired to do the driveway. Okay? And I asked him to read it to me, like, so I know what the deposition says, and he didn't have them. And then when I asked again, they said they sent it to Albany. Then I asked Albany for it, and they told me wait till April of 2019. Now, I want to get this court case going and whatever, but I need those depositions, so it wouldn't behoove me, it wouldn't be in my interest to start a civil thing. That's part of like the holdup also, because like I don't have the depositions, a copy of the depositions that were done. I have Officer Perry giving me his recollection of what was said, but I need to know what was said exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to be honest with you, we wouldn't be able to give you those depositions anyways.
No, I understand that. I have to get through Albany, and I'll go through Albany. But what I'm saying is, you guys never presented those depositions to the DA's office.
No, I know. I mean, usually if it's a civil issue, they don't take depositions anyways. So I think what Trooper Perry was doing was kind of picking their brain. He still interviewed them. He still spoke with them and got their entire side of the story, which he documented in this report that I see. But he didn't put it on a deposition. So what he did was he went to the ADA and still explained this Layton's whole side of their story that wasn't put on an official document, but he still explained it to the DA.
I understand that, but this is what I'm trying to say. And you know this as an officer, I could say something to you that's different, but Sergeant Buzzard and Perry told me that, and when they were here, that they're going to get a deposition, and they told me they did get the deposition. It's not an interview, a deposition, and I see, just like I took a deposition, I seen my neighbor come out with a paper of his deposition out of his car. So there was a deposition taken in that thing, definitely, 100%. If not,
he did take a deposition.
He took a deposition after the DA. After you guys went to the DA, he took a deposition from Brian Lane and from Charles Kelly. That was reiterated to me on multiple times. You could ask Perry, you could ask Buzzard. I witnessed it. I witnessed Brian go into his car, type it up, and him come out with a copy just like a...
Yeah, he did. He took a deposition from... Yeah, the deposition pretty much stated, that they hired Kelly Asphalt to finish the blacktop job in the driveway, which started in 2016. Yeah, that's... Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
But it's the same information that was relayed to the DA's office.
But that's crazy, because if you're telling me that they hired, it's more than like they just hired Kelly. That was obvious. They hired Kelly. That wasn't the thing. What I'm saying to you is, when that deposition was taken, okay, and I was talking to Officer Perry, basically it was stated to me that basically, see, like they knew. First of all, they knew it wasn't their property. They know because they have a survey. They have the pipe. I gave him recorded conversations that I have with Brian Lane to present to the DA's office, where Brian admits he always knew that that was not their property. And he even says he told Kelly not to go past there. That's what he said at the time. And I gave Perry this information. It was a recorded conversation. So that's what I don't understand. If he knew that wasn't his property and he hired Kelly and you have a deposition saying that, that's clearly not civil. That's criminal. Because the intent is you know that that is not your property. Period.
You know, and I can't explain on the DA's behalf, you know.
Sure. But if I go to the DA right now and they say, listen, the officer interviewed him, but we didn't have any kind of evidence, because you know that's perjury when you lie on a deposition. So what I'm saying is if I go to a DA's office right now and I start asking them and they say, well, they didn't present... It should have been presented with the depositions in the first place, like Perry said he was going to do to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Because you took my deposition, you should have took their deposition, which he constantly was telling me he's going to do. And you could investigate all you want, but you should have took a deposition from Brian, from Christy, from Mr. Kelly, and then took that and presented it with along the evidence that I gave you. Like, so you're telling me he presented that audio tape, that the audio recording that I gave where Brian Kelly says he knew that it wasn't his, like he knew that that's not his part, his land, that my land is not his land?
I don't know what was presented to them, to be honest.
Okay, so please, since you're the commander, find that out, because I want it presented properly. Because if it's not presented properly in law, they're just going to hide behind, they're going to basically blame you, say, I wasn't presented with that, or else I would have said it was criminal. There's a criminal act here. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I want to be treated fairly. Like I said, this is now a couple of instances where, like, you know this. You shouldn't have to tell your officer to say to him, before you leave, you know the person that called? Tell them the outcome. That's like a given. That's the whole purpose of him coming here. You know what I'm saying? That shouldn't... So I get treated unfairly there. You know what I'm saying? I got people yelling at me. They don't even get a warning. I get the warning to make sure I shut up. And like you said, freedom of speech. So you're telling me to basically not have my freedom of speech, don't say anything, and you don't even warn the people who are causing the yelling. They're doing it in front of neighbors, which is embarrassing, okay? And no disorderly, nothing gets given to them. Nothing. Not even a warning at the thing, okay? That's for safety purposes at the very least. That's why those two things I would like for you to look into. You could look into the first officer and speak to him, because me personally, I don't know what his beef was. The way his demeanor was from the beginning was rude as soon as he came here. That's number one. The other officer, he wasn't rude or anything. He took care of the situation, but I don't like that after I left. And that was another thing. They waited for me to leave before they yelled. If they wanted to yell, they could have yelled when I was there, but they waited for me to leave when my wife's alone. Yep. And like I said, please add in Brian Lane into that, because he was also yelling. I just heard Christy Lane when you read the report, but they were both yelling. And what I'm saying is, no warnings given. That's where my problem comes in with him. No disorderly person. And it wasn't the first time. Officer Perry could verify. When I first gave him the report, I told him they yelled at me, you know, from the driveway. You know, and like he didn't even say to her, stop. Like no kind of warning to her, nothing. And it happened on two separate times. One when they're in the street, one when in the driveway. You know? Yep. And I'm not saying I need an answer today. I'm just saying, like, and also look it over. When the evidence that was presented to the DA, I sent Mr. Perry 20 freaking pages of stuff. I want to make sure that you confirm to me that, one, that the DA did get the depositions, because that would make a difference. That would be perjury if they're lying. It's not hearsay. And also make sure that they got the recording that I gave. I typed it out and gave him, like, the recording that Perry gave him, where Brian Lane admits that he never told Mr. Kelly to go all the way over. You see what I'm saying? Because just that fact, without being confusing on a million facts, if he says he hired Mr. Kelly to do the whole driveway, okay, and Mrs. Lane in the other, when she spoke to the first officer, Mr. Hoffner, says that was always driveway. If that's the information they gave to your officers. And I'm giving you a tape of Brian Lane telling me months ago, before any of you were called, he knew that wasn't his land. He never told Mr. Kelly to go over there. That's criminal. Just that evidence alone would be criminal. Because that means he's lying to you. And...
Let me, yeah, this is what I'll do for you.
Okay.
I do have to get going, but this is what I'll do for you, sir. I will talk to Trooper Perry, about that video recording.
Okay.
I will make sure that that was presented to the DA's office.
Okay.
I will also make sure that the depositions that were taken from the neighbors were provided to the DA's office.
Okay.
I will then make contact with the DA's office, ensure that they have it, and I will see what their decision is based on that evidence given to them. I will speak with Dean Hoffer about how he handled the first situation on the 16th. I'm going to speak with Noonan how he handled that on the 19th, and expect a update phone call from me.
I appreciate everything. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate it. That's all I ask. Just get back to me when you can. Thank you a million times. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All right.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.